One of the interesting things about the mission boundaries is, most people kind of get their call and they look, oh, okay, so it's this part of the country. And Norway, the Oslo mission is literally just the entire country. It's all of it from, the very south tip of Norway all the way up to like the highest point on continental Europe. Like, it's ridiculous. And then even then you can look up and there's this like tiny island near the North Pole that the mission covers. So it's just it's a little weird. There's like one family up there that kind of Skypes into church at one of the northern branches. And so, you just kind of get that feeling like this mission's huge. Like there's missionaries all over the entire country. When I was there, I think we hit a low point of like 50 missionaries. So for the entire country of Norway, you're pretty spread out. I remember there was one time where the closest missionaries to us were like a half-hour plane flight away. We had district meetings over Skype, and that was the first time I was district leader too. I'm trying to lead district meetings with these 4 other missionaries over Skype. It was just kind of a hilarious experience overall. But I don't know, the mission's just really cool. Norway as a country is just, the culture is so interesting. It's a lot like ours, but at the same time there's some real key differences. I'd say the people overall are just a lot quieter. I remember getting there and, people just talk very quiet. And when you're trying to learn a new language too, that's kind of hard, just because you're trying to pick out just the specific words in their sentences and they're being very quiet. You have to listen very carefully, especially over the phone. That gets really hard because they're even quieter on the phone and it's a little bit more fuzzy. And yeah, so that was one of the first challenges that I had with the mission. I think ever since the age change announcement, like the number of missionaries in the country has gone up a ton. I think we're upwards of like 120 now. I know it was going way up when I barely left. We were getting all this, especially the sister missionaries coming out. For the most part, what we tried to do in Norway is we tried to work with the members a lot. We tried to visit them, talk to them, see if, they had any friends that would be interested in the gospel, see if they'd had any spiritual experiences, and really just try to highlight those. We would go out and we'd contact people on the street a lot. It definitely wasn't the most effective thing to do. And Norwegian, especially for Norwegians, it's kind of hard just because they really don't like talking to people just kind of out of the blue. You really have to kind of get behind that wall first of, hey, we're friends. I know you from this and this. You need a connection almost, just to kind of talk to them on the street. But at the same time, it worked. God's a God of miracles. And even in a culture like that, we're still led to people that we could talk to. Probably the most important clothing you'd probably want to buy in Norway itself. A lot of the jackets and everything, you're going to want it to be just kind of in the Norwegian style. And, as far as winter goes and everything there, they really do it a lot better in Norway. They make a lot better just, winter clothing over there. So, yeah, go with that. Other than that, just follow whatever they give you in your missionary letter. That'll explain it all really well. So go with that. Make sure you bring plenty of long sleeve shirts. Get ready to be cold a little bit. It's not too cold, but yeah, it's cold.
The Norwegian Mission is a very small mission. And when I went there, it might have grown a little bit by now, but there was a total of 60 missionaries. And that's really nice because you get to know all of them, become a really tight-knit group. And with it being so small, you're spread out a lot. So a lot of the areas in the mission are very secluded. So you'll be in a tiny town that's 2 hours from the nearest other missionary pair. And it's an adventure because you really have to be independent. But the statistics about the church itself, the church is slow growing in Norway. For the past 40 years, it has stayed steady at about 5,000 members. So it's been, up and down. But in the last 10 years or so, we've seen an increase in baptisms and converts. So it is going forward, just a lot slower than everywhere else in the world. Let's see, just this past year, or the last 6 months of my mission, we got the second stake in Norway. So before that, the one stake that was there was more concentrated around the capital, and then the west coast and the northern part of Norway were branches. But when that second stake was made, the west coast was made into its own stake, and a lot of the branches there became wards, and a lot of the branches there stayed branches. So it's very variable with the amount of members, and a lot of the bigger cities, obviously, there's more members, and so most of those are wards. But you'll have a bunch of branches that on a good Sunday you'll have 9 members come to church, and you have to give the sacrament talks, bless the sacrament because there's no young men, and it's quite an experience. Yeah, it's a lot different than here. It's to be a member in the Norwegian Mission or the Norwegian country is you're definitely a minority, and you have to be really strong to stay and stick up to your beliefs. Majority of the citizens of Norway are atheist or agnostic, and so you're kind of the anomaly when you have such a strong faith in God to be in Norway. And it's really empowering to see these Norwegian members overcome that pressure. There's a lot of pressure to, forsake God and say, I don't need him, I've got enough money. Oh man, I'm going to butcher this story, but I know that the Scandinavian members started in Denmark. And so I think there was a Norwegian sailor who went to Denmark and was converted there. And then he came back to Norway and started proselyting. And in the early stages of the missionary work in Norway was not very good. They were thrown into prison. They were tried to kick them out. And there were very few members in the very beginning. But just like anything else, it started to go and take off after a while. But in the early stage of the church, there was a lot of pressure or a lot of encouragement to travel to Salt Lake. So I'd say about half of the converts in Norway ended up immigrating to the U.S. and then to Salt Lake. So that put a big damper on the member count in Norway, and it really hasn't taken up since then. So
the Oslo mission, it's the entire country is one mission. So from the far up north to a little city called Alta is like the highest north you can go, to the highest north the missionaries are, to like the very bottom is just one mission. When I was there was one stake right in the middle, right? It was called the Oslo stake that was just right around Oslo. Now there's 2 stakes. After I left, they got another. But there's still a bunch of small branches everywhere that don't have a lot of members. But in church it was one of the earlier missions for members, but a lot of the members came back over here, and that's why you see so many people in Utah with Scandinavian descent or Norwegian or Swedish descent. It's because it was opened really early in the church. But now it's relatively small member-wise. There aren't a whole lot of members, and most of the members are really centered around Oslo and the smaller, the little cities around it. There's a lot of bigger wards right around there. Like the Oslo ward will have almost 200 members that will come every week. And then there's a Drammen ward that's one of the bigger ones in the country that has about the same, and it's just right outside Oslo. And then Sandvika. There's a bunch of wards just right around Oslo that are the same size as wards you would see in Utah. But then you get further north and there'll be wards where branches where there's 4 or 5 members and maybe not even active, that the missionaries kind of have to run. They don't have church buildings. They have to meet somewhere else. But most of the ones right around Oslo all have big, nice, newer church buildings that are really great. First, there's a video that the members over in Norway made about one of the first missionaries that was there who got put in jail and put through a bunch of persecution, but I can't remember his name or really the details of the story, so I'd have to look it up. I have a pamphlet on it, but I don't remember any of it.